But a really warm welcome to this event today. And I'm delighted to say we're joined by Elenid Steffan, who's joined us from Edge Hill University. Elenid's going to look at university accommodation. Also joined by Amy Shimmin, who's joined us from the University of Aberdeen. And Amy's going to be introducing studying in Scotland if you're interested in going to Scotland for your studies, or if you're in Scotland now and interested in studying with a Scottish university. And last but not least, Lucy Nottingham is joining us from the University of East Anglia. And Lucy's going to talk about the EPQ and why universities like to see it. I'm very conscious that you've tuned in not to hear from me, but our excellent speakers. So without further ado, I'll introduce our first speaker. And while I'm doing so, Elenid, do feel free to get your presentation ready. Elenid Steffan is joining us from Edge Hill University, and she's going to talk to us about university accommodation. Often I attend these events and students always ask about different types of university accommodation, etc. And Elenid's going to provide an introduction to that for us. So Elenid, without further ado, the floor is yours, please.
So my presentation is going to be about university accommodation. As I said, my name is Elenid Steffan and I'm an Education Liaison Officer at Edge Hill University. The aims of this session is to give you a bit of an overview of student accommodation. We'll look at the different types of accommodations and the options that you have, and we'll also obviously consider the pros and the cons of these. I'll give you some key things to research, and then to wrap up, I'll give you some top tips to consider when making your choices. So the first thing to think about is, where do students live? Now, the chart that you'll see here is actually research that was conducted by Which. And it's really fascinating to see that actually loads of universities and loads of students do offer university halls, and students do take up that option. But what you'll find is that a number of students also consider private accommodation or live at home. You also have some students, maybe mature students, who own their own property or who already live with family, and that's also an option as well. There are so many things to consider when we do look at university accommodation, but ultimately it must be a decision that is right for you. Living at home can be cheaper, and it can be a cheaper option, and also convenient if you are already living locally to your university. However, being in accommodation will encourage independence and will allow you to meet lots of new people as well. So let's start by looking at university managed halls. This is probably something that you have heard of, and maybe the one thing that you consider to be a main option, but it's actually only one of the options that you have. Most first year students will be allocated a place in university managed accommodation or halls, and a lot of universities might guarantee that option, or might say that they're able to offer most of their students in their first year a guaranteed or a space in halls of residence. It is a really great way to get to know people, and they're usually very conveniently located as well, so no worries about commuting to your lectures in the morning. Some universities might even offer options which are specific accommodation based on your subject cohort or close to a particular part of the campus that you might be studying in. It is ultimately really good preparation for living away from home for the first time. Some might consider this almost like a halfway option before moving out completely into private accommodation or private housing, because usually your bills are included in the price. Sometimes you can choose catered options, so it is a really good halfway option. However, you might not always get your first choice. Typically, what universities will do is ask you to rank your choices. And also, it's unusual that you'll get to choose the people that you live with before moving in. However, that can usually be the beauty of moving into university accommodation. Private halls or private accommodation is something that's becoming increasingly popular, specifically maybe within cities that have more than one different universities based there. So for example, you might live in that accommodation and meet students or live with students that go to another university but within the same city. The setup is very similar to university halls, so you'll get your own room and you'll share communal areas. Usually the location of them can be really central and really great, so they can be in the centre of the city, which is great if you have a part-time job or if you really want to immerse yourself in city living. However, they can be a bit pricier. Sometimes they include extra costs, sometimes unnecessary costs that you might not need, like a gym or extra facilities. And there are, of course, the same pitfalls as university halls as well. So it's very, very unusual that you'll get to choose who you live with in advance, but some might offer that. And then the final one that I really want to focus on is living at home. It is a great option if that's what you would like and that's what you would prefer. It can undoubtedly be a cheaper option. And of course, there's no need to pack and to relocate. If you are already living locally in the area, then you might actually already be close to campus and you might already have really good transport links, and those kind of thoughts might already be in process. And there is, of course, that old cliche, which is someone still at home to cook and possibly even do your laundry. But you will be further away from the hustle and bustle of student life. And of course, there isn't quite that level of independent living. Someone else's roof often also means someone else's rules. So what should you find out and what should you look into? If you are considering all of these options, then these are some things that I'd encourage you to maybe jot down or consider when you look at your options. Security can be a really big one, and the safety of the accommodation. Do they offer 24-hour security, or are there perhaps people or wardens who are within the accommodation to support you if you need any help? What about the contract length? If your course maybe runs a little bit longer over the summer, or placements, for example, or you wish to stay in the city for part-time jobs, then what does the contract length look like, and can you be flexible with that? Do ask, because a lot of universities, especially if you are a care leaver, offer those options for you to have access to the accommodation throughout the year without needing to move out. So do look into that. Can you choose specific features? So alcohol-free or same-sex accommodation? And think about the location and the transport links as well. It's very unusual that you will need your car at university. And what you'll find as well is that some halls of residence might charge for a permit for parking, or it might be limited. You might have to apply. Most universities have either discounted or free transport links for you to consider. And then look at student support. There are often things like campus support teams, or people there to be able to support you if you want any help with transition, or even things like organising events and even cooking masterclasses sometimes. So where can I look for my research? These are some really key places that I would really encourage you to look into if you haven't had the chance to yet. Unipol's national code will give you an idea of the accreditation for student accommodation. So that's really useful if you are moving into private housing, and even maybe in your second and third year, to look to make sure that your landlord or your providers are giving what should be provided to you and meeting those requirements as well. Watch virtual tours, or if you can, attend a virtual open day. Usually the accommodation team might have a specific stand or setup at those events. So do make sure that you go and check those out and chat to them about the contracts, about the prices, even about what it's like to live at those accommodations. The student room is a really great tool to chat to students in the exact same boat as you, but even students who have previously lived in accommodation like that, currently living there, ask them about kind of what their key things to consider was. You might even meet people who are moving into similar accommodation as you. And the Brightside Student Calculator is a really excellent tool to work out your budget in advance. And that can be really useful if you are deciding between 2 or 3 different options. So let's look at this timeline then. Before applying, do make sure that you research your options. Make sure that you look at 360-degree tours. Consider your budget as well. So what can you afford and what do you realistically need? Even though you might really want that ensuite, does it really fit in within your budget? After applying, make sure that you allow communications from your chosen university. So do have a look in your spam and your junk folder. Do try and avoid unsubscribing from everything, because you might get some really key and useful information from your accommodation about applying for, or from your university, sorry, about applying for accommodation and some other key things to know. After confirming your place at that university, you will be invited to apply for halls. This is just the average timeline. It might differ in some ways between universities, and of course, if you are applying for private accommodation, be sure to make a note of their specific deadlines. And then moving in, either before or kind of during that process, do have a look at social media pages for your accommodation, and do try and find the official ones that are accredited and managed by your university. Even if you are considering living at home, it's a really good idea to check those social media pages for events, and it's a really great way to kind of meet other people as well on your course or just at that university. Look for an inventory guide to help you to pack and also buy only what you need. It's very common to turn up on that first day, moving into a flat, and actually everyone's bought a kettle, even though there's one provided. And then do things like the admin side of things. So sort out your insurance and change any subscriptions or addresses that you might have to reflect your new address at university. So a quick summary then. You can choose to live in halls, in private accommodation, or at home. Do take advantage of 360-degree tours to view and to compare your options. Consider and research the cost and the benefit of each option before making your final decision. And you will start your accommodation application once you've accepted a place on a course, unless they specify other deadlines. And do make sure that you look at each one depending on your university. And now my top tips for you. This is a really cliche one that you might have heard before, but do take a doorstop with you and try not to, if you can, stay in your room when you first move in. Say hello and maybe help carry boxes as well. It's a really great way to break the ice. Get involved, even if you live at home. Look out for events or check out those social media pages that will give you a real insight into what's going on campus or at your university. Make sure that you read the small print, so what's included, the deposit, the contract length, all sorts of things like that. It's really useful to know, and especially useful at the end of your contract when you're moving out. Do not be afraid to contact universities in advance if you have any questions. If you've got any specific needs or requirements, do contact them and see what adaptability they'll be able to do, if they're able to offer any specific requirements for your room or adapt especially for your needs. And do consider what you need when making a decision as well. It can be very easy to be swayed by modern accommodation or ensuite or being really close to the city, but do consider what you actually need whilst you're at university. Thank you very much for listening. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elenid. That's really a great whistle-stop introduction to university accommodation. And as you said, if you've got any questions, there is a Q&A tab and questions are welcome throughout. So really, really appreciate that. Excellent session. Thank you. Our second speaker is going to be Amy Shimmin, who's joining us from the University of Aberdeen, and she is going to provide an overview of studying in Scotland. So if you're interested in studying in Scotland, Amy's going to provide some really useful information now. And Amy, I think without further ado, I'll pass the floor to you, please.
Thanks, Jon. So my name's Amy Shimmin, like Jon just said, and I'll be talking to you about studying in Scotland. I work for the University of Aberdeen, but I'll give a quick overview of all the different options available about studying in Scotland as well. So first of all, up on the screen, we've got some quite stereotypical ideas of Scotland. So we've got sort of beautiful landscapes, we've got the piper and his bagpipes, the castles, and all of these things are in Scotland. And bagpipes, for example, you will hear them while you're in Scotland, if not during the city at your graduation ceremony, which is very traditional to hear. But there's also a completely different side of Scotland beyond these stereotypes. There's sports, nightlife, festivals all across the year in all the different cities, and a really variety of culture across the country. So it's a great place to study, it's a great place to live. And as you can tell, I am not from Scotland. I came here to study and I've been here ever since. So it is a great place to live, work and study. So we've got a little map just here, which shows you the sort of scope of the universities in Scotland and sort of where they're all based. So as I said, I'm from the University of Aberdeen, which is in the city of Aberdeen on the northeast coast. Just down the road from us, we've got the universities of Dundee and Abertay in the city of Dundee. St Andrews is in this little nook of Fife here. Edinburgh and Glasgow are the two largest cities in Scotland, and they have the most universities there. Edinburgh, Heriot-Watt, Napier, Queen Margaret, Glasgow, Strathclyde, West of Scotland and Glasgow Caledonian. The University of Stirling is based in the city of Stirling, which is directly between the universities, the cities, of Glasgow and Edinburgh. And up in the Highlands of Scotland, there's the University of the Highlands and Islands, and that is a campus-based university, so they have a number of campuses in the different Highland towns and even the islands of Scotland, such as Shetland and Orkney. So why study in Scotland? We bring over 500 years of excellence. Some of our universities are some of the oldest in the English-speaking world. St Andrews, Glasgow and Aberdeen were all founded in the 1400s. Our qualifications are accepted worldwide, so wherever you go from Scotland, you'll be sure to bring a well-recognised qualification and academic rigour in whatever career or future path you'd like to take. And we are an international community and a safe, welcoming and friendly society. Scottish people are typically some of the most friendly people you will meet, and some of our cities are full of different things to do, no matter what time of year or no matter what time of day it is. And obviously following on, education in Scotland, as you're interested in studying here, there's a wide range of academic expertise, and no matter what subject you're thinking about studying, I can guarantee there will be a university in Scotland that offers that course. As in university in England, there's a focus on taught learning as well as independent study. You might be doing your own research, your own essays and assignments. But what's different about studying in Scotland is that the undergraduate degree is 3 years long. Sorry, it's 4 years long compared to 3 years in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. If you're doing certain courses like medicine, it would still be 5 years, or dentistry or veterinary medicine, as it would be across the UK. And these 4 years are typically split into two parts. So your first 2 years, you can study a breadth of subjects. So this offers you the chance to study the subject or subjects you applied for on UCAS, but also pick up some new subjects, try something new, learn a language, or continue studying things that you've enjoyed at school, but you don't want to continue to degree level. And then in your third and fourth year, you specialise in your chosen subjects, and you would graduate with the subjects that you study in third and fourth year. If you're looking for a quicker way of graduating in Scotland, but still benefiting from our degree, there's also advanced entry available at most universities. These would be typically higher entry requirements than the standard entry, but you would enter into the second year of your degree and you would graduate slightly quicker with the same degree as someone who took the 4-year pathway. You can also study abroad, either in the second or the third year of your degree. Some examples of where you can study are Rome, Barcelona, Seoul in South Korea, Australia, North America, and one of my favourite places I think you can study from a Scottish university is actually Lapland. So if you really want to experience a completely different environment, you can actually live in the North Pole, and that would be counted towards your degree. So on the screen here, I've given you the example of someone who's applied to UCAS to study English. In year 1, they study 3 subjects. We call this enhanced study because we believe these extra subjects really enhance your experience and your academic background. So this person has studied English level 1. They've also studied business management and history. In year 2, they've continued to study business and English, and they've chosen to study an extra course in archaeology. This means at the end of year 2, as they're progressing to year 3, this student has 3 pathways now open to them. So they apply to UCAS to study English, and they can continue to study an English single honours degree. But they've also got the option to study a single honours business degree or a joint degree in English and business. The courses they've studied in year 1 and 2 would still be recognised on their transcript, but they would be able to then choose a different pathway if they so wish. And this is great if you're not too sure what you want to study, or you're thinking of studying something new. You don't want to commit to it just yet. You want to try it out and be sure that you enjoy it. And the Scottish degree is a really great pathway if that's what you're thinking. But also if you really enjoy your subject, it's great as well, because years 3 and 4 allow you to specialise, and your year 1 and 2 subjects you can choose to complement your main subject of study. In terms of fees, it's very similar to studying elsewhere in the rest of the UK. So typically £9,250 per year will be the tuition fee, and you would apply to the respective student finance body where you are from. So if you were from Manchester, whether you wanted to study in Belfast, Cardiff, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, London, you would apply to Student Finance England for your tuition fee loans. And you would apply for your maintenance loans as well, which are to help you pay with your living costs. Every university will have a range of scholarships available. Some of these you might need to apply for separately, and some of things you might be eligible for automatically based on the information you provide to the university. The link here is for Aberdeen's website, but you can check this out on any other university's website and check out what funding is available. Often scholarships that aren't claimed are just rolled over to the next year or even written off. So it's always best to apply for anything you think you might be eligible for, as this may be some extra money to fund your studies, fund your accommodation, or just for a bit more comfort while you're living as a student. And like I said earlier, advanced entry for A-level students or higher students, or IB, whatever qualifications you're doing, is also possible, and this means you will graduate after 3 years with the same degree as someone who studied for 4. So we've talked a bit about choosing why to study in Scotland and what degree you would like to study, but also which university is a really important thing to think about. So first of all, location. If you want to study in Scotland, staying at home typically wouldn't be possible unless you already live in Scotland. If you're thinking about moving away, you might want to consider how often you can go home and what connections there are to your hometown, city or region. There are a number of airports in Scotland with connections to the main airports across the UK, and it's well served by train links on the east and west coast of Britain. So you can get to and from London, from all the cities in Scotland and all the cities in between that in England as well on the main coast railways. And you might also want to think about city or country location. Do you want to be living in a very big city with lots of other students and lots of things to do? Or do you prefer being in the countryside and with really close access to nature? The best thing about studying in Scotland is that you can choose either of these options, and both options offer a really, really bright student experience. The size of your university is a huge factor as well. So big universities such as Glasgow, Edinburgh and Manchester have over 30,000 students. These are big cities with big universities with tens of thousands of students, which will be a very different experience to a medium-sized university such as Aberdeen, York or Dundee, where there's typically between 10 and 20,000, 10 and 15,000 students. And then campus universities such as the University of Stirling is very similar in size to the University of Lancaster, with around 10 to 12,000 students or even less than 10,000 students. The experience at these universities will all be different, and it completely depends on your interests, tastes and preferences. And facilities are really important to think about. If you're a keen athlete, you would want to look at the sports facilities at the university. You would want to look at the library facilities where you would be studying, and also the accommodation facilities where you would be living. And the previous presentation gave some really good insight on how to look at where to live for your accommodation. Student life as well is a huge part of the university experience. You're not just studying your course, you're living and experiencing the university lifestyle for 3 or 4 years or 5 years, depends on your course. So you might want to look at what societies are available, what sports clubs if you already practice a sport, what welfare support is available, is there a counselling service, is there a disability service if you need any additional support while you study, what the nightlife's like in the city you want to move to, if I can study abroad, and what part-time work opportunities are available in the city or town you will study in. And finally, accommodation. So does the university guarantee accommodation for all first-year students? Do you want to live in catered or self-catered accommodation? What is the support like once you're in the accommodation? Do you have residence assistants who are there to speak to throughout the day and the night? Or do you want private accommodation, which may be more in the city centre or maybe separate to the university? And student support is really important, as they're there to help you throughout your studies and really help you get the most out of your university experience. Look for the nearest medical practice. We would always recommend you register when you first arrive to save any problems if you're feeling a little bit ill. Further down the line, you don't have to wait and fill out any paperwork at that point. Chaplaincy, if you are religious or spiritual, they're there to support you with your faith and any other issues you might have at university. and your personal tutor will be a contact for you to speak to with any other queries throughout your academic programme. Employability as well. Scottish universities have excellent employability prospects, and the Scottish average for graduate employment is 90% within 6 months of graduation, and we have some of the highest starting salaries in the UK after you finish your degree. So where to find information? So the UCAS website is a great point for finding all the courses that are available. University websites and open days are great ways to contact the university directly and find out about their courses and their services. The Student Room is a great website to contact with other students and speak to students who may be applying to the same course or same university as you. League tables are really good to look at, but you can also filter by department and course. Certain courses may be some of the best in the country, so I would recommend you look by course and also what factors that league table is looking at. Are they looking at research quality? Are they looking at student satisfaction? All these factors are really important in creating a really balanced judgment. So here I've got a screenshot of the UCAS website. So as you can see, I've searched for politics degrees and I've filtered by Scotland. So on the filter tab on the left-hand side, you can click which region or part of the UK you would like to see courses in. And as you can see, there's over 200 courses for politics or combinations with politics in Scotland. And open days, these will be slightly different. However, research them in advance, see what the dates are, see what the times are, and see if you need to register. This is something, especially for virtual open days, you will have to do in advance. Prepare your questions and think what you'd like to ask the staff and students, and take virtual tours and experiences of the accommodation, the campus, or the buildings where you'll be studying. If you miss out on open days this year due to the ongoing lockdown and restrictions, there's typically offer holder days once you've received an offer, which may be able to go ahead next year, or you may be able to visit the campus privately at a later date. And that's all from me. If you have any questions, you can contact my team at this email address. But thank you, and I'll pass you over back to Jon.
Thank you very much, Amy. Really good introduction to studying in Scotland, and also very on message, Amy, with our event at 3 o'clock today showing politics courses on the UCAS search. So thank you for that as well. But excellent. If you've got any questions for Amy, do send them over in the Q&A, which is just the bottom tab. We're more than welcome to answer ask questions. Our final speaker today is Lucy, who is joining us from the University of East Anglia. And Lucy's going to do a session introducing the EPQ. And the extended project qualification, and why universities often like to see it. So a lot of students do the EPQ, but it's actually rare when you get a university that's talking about why it's useful, what it is, and why often students choose to do it. So Lucy, the floor is yours, please, for an introduction to the EPQ qualification. Thank you.
So I'm Lucy from the UEA, and I'm going to talk about the EPQ and why universities like it in particular, and what we can do to support you whilst you're looking at the EPQ. So very quickly, for those of you who don't know already, the EPQ is a large independent project that you take part in alongside studies at level 3, whether that be A-level, IB or BTEC qualifications. It's research-based report or an artifact. So depending on whether you want to write an essay answering a question, or whether you want to build an artifact or article of your own, you've got 2 options with the EPQ to be able to do an independent study of your own. How it's built up is that you start by creating your project or your product, but whilst you're going through that process, you are looking at your production log, completing research. At the end of the EPQ, you will undertake a presentation, and also you will be looking at getting some talk skills as part of that. So that could be research skills, that could be presentation skills, but you will do a roughly 30 hours of talk programme whilst you're undertaking the project as well. So why do we think it's important at universities to undertake the EPQ or take it as an additional opportunity alongside your studies? Well, to start with, it really does show determination to study a new course or a new topic and develop your knowledge further. So it shows that you're determined to do that and that you're passionate about the thing that you are studying. It enhances your UCAS application. It says you have done something extra above and beyond your studies, but also you've taken some of your free time to undertake that that particular course and the EPQ. It's really good practice for universities. There are lots of transferable skills that students who've done the EPQ talk about having completed. So those transferable skills and this for university could be things like essay writing, researching, presentations. There's lots of things that you have to do that you will have to do whilst you are studying at university as well. So universities look very favourably on those skills that you're gaining, but also you've got that up that head start ahead of other students, for example, who might be going in without any knowledge of the types of things they might be having to study. And it shows knowledge beyond your A levels. So it could be a topic or a module that you've studied at A level that you want to find out more about, or it could be building something that, you know, demonstrates perhaps your engineering techniques or your art techniques. So it's showing that you have progressed your knowledge further than the courses you are studying, whether that be A level, IB, BTEC qualifications. So the student room very firmly say the skills that you'll develop as a result of doing the EPQ are invaluable in most jobs and university courses. And we really feel that at UEA, we feel that that's very important for students to have those sort of higher level understandings and those skills that they've been able to develop before they've even started their university course. Those skills are definitely going to help students who are undertaking the EPQ. So the types of skills we're talking about could be things like self-advocacy. So, you know, understanding your limits and understanding how to sell the skills that you already have. Independent study, which is a huge factor in any university course. It could range that your course looks for anything from 12 to 30 hours independent study a week sometimes. So learning those independent study skills and how you're fitting them around your timetable will really balance your time management skills and look at how you are developing and balancing the responsibilities that you have in order to complete the project. It will show self-motivation, that persistence to complete what you are doing, because it won't be monitored in the same way. You'll have a mentor who helps you through your EPQ course, but it won't be someone who checks up on you daily and looks at specific things with you. It's more, you know, you'll look to them as inspiration and knowledge. You'll have to evaluate all the work that you do during the process. So that's often done through a log, where you log the different activities that you've done on your way to completing your article or your essay project. And you'll have to have researched the topics that you want to understand better. So all these skills together build up the EPQ alongside referencing. And referencing is a skill that a number of our first year students often say, oh, I wish I knew more about referencing when I started. We run various different workshops, as do a lot of universities, on referencing. And it's a skill that perhaps at university you will have already gained and be moving on to with your EPQ. So just one example of referencing and how it works. As you can see in the green, they've referenced where they've got their resources from. This is using the Harvard system. And then at the end of the essay that you'll be writing, or the project log following your article, you've got the reference list as well. And this skill, it took me ages to master in my first year. So it's always really, really helpful to sort of have that head start, have that understanding of what referencing techniques might be before you get to university. And as I said before, lots of our students talk about that want to have that understanding already. So in terms of university admissions, it could be that having done the EPQ, a university offers you a additional offer. So you get 2 offers from your university. So the standard offer may be that you have to have grade A, B to get onto the course that you want to study. But with the EPQ, they've taken that AAB, and if you've managed to get a high grade in your EPQ, like an A, they will then drop your EPQ offer down to ABB for your actual course. So you've got that opportunity to sort of show your knowledge, show your understanding, develop a project that you are passionate about, but also it could be an opportunity to take some of the pressure off the courses and the grades that you're having to get. It's still worth working hard for all of the grades that you are going to get onto your course, but it might be that your EPQ will help alleviate that a little bit. Okay, so the things that different organisations have spoken to us, both through the examples that offer the EPQ and different people who've undertaken the EPQ, they've talked about the benefits that they feel are coming out of the EPQ. And a lot of teachers have commented on the benefits to their A-level performance. So students are finding that they're getting better A-level grades because they're understanding their topics a bit better, they're understanding their essays, their coursework, their exam pressures a little bit better because they've taken their time and got that 30 hours of additional learning ready and prepped with their EPQ. It could be that your grades are increased, so odds of an A star to be increased by up to 29%. So gaining that higher level qualification to get into the top universities. EPQ students are less likely to leave university after the first year because they've already had those preparation skills. So if you want to find out a bit more, then I've put the references down the bottom just to help you. And EPQ students are more likely to obtain a first or a 2-1 at the full end of their degree. So students are still seeing the benefits all the way through to the end of their degree programme, which is really helpful for looking at, you know, and considering the future whilst you're considering your EPQ as well. When it comes to university study, this is a UEA Senate scale or a grading scale for university, and one of the criteria that is looked for is the use of sources and evidence. And to get the top grades in that, students have to show exemplary use of sources, case studies and evidence. And you have to show those as part of your EPQ project. So you've already got that understanding on the range of different resources that you're using to complete your project and the different areas that you would have to look into to find them. So by building on that EPQ, you are looking at the sources and evidence that you could continue on to, and that's a factor in a lot of grading for university. So that's the head start in that factor area. And also they will look at referencing. So as we said before, you have to do all the referencing for your EPQ project, and making sure you understand that process as part of your EPQ gives you that head start on first year students who haven't done the EPQ. When picking your topic, you might start off by looking at what you're interested in, and it might be that you do a subject linked to the subjects that you want to take at university to gain better knowledge in that area. We often find that medicine students, for example, do their EPQ on a medicine topic, and we're fully expecting next year to see a considerable number of EPQs based around COVID-19. But each time whilst you're working through, it's really important to make sure that you have the knowledge to understand the EPQ further, that you found out enough about it, that there's enough right about your topic, or to produce that article that's going to help support whatever scheme it may be. And you know, the types of topics that we've had in the past could be linked to your course or could not. So as we said before, we've seen lots of different EPQ titles that are linked to the subject that students study. But for example, we've also seen people really branch out and look into their interest areas. So these are 3 or 4 examples of themes that people have put into their essay title for their EPQ and the subjects that they've gone on to study. So as you can see, some of them are very much poles apart and some of them are very much linked together. So it can be down to you as to which area you want to focus on with your title or your topic. But each time it's always worth checking and understanding your title and making sure that you've got enough to write about. And that's something that a lot of university students talk about when they're setting their own questions for their own essays. They want to make sure that they've got enough resources, and it's a skill that they've gained from their EPQ, because they found sometimes there's not enough resource material to back up an EPQ, and so they've had to look at a slightly different question to make sure there's resources from lots of different areas. And those resources come from so many areas, and the research can come from so many new directions. So you've got journal articles, podcasts, books, magazines, and by thoroughly working through those resources, their EPQ, they're starting to understand which ones are going to help them in their future university careers and which ones are going to hinder them further. So when you're thinking about key questions to ask through the EPQ and actually through any degree programme, when you're thinking about essays, you might be talking about the arguments of someone who's written a resource for you, but each time it's about being reflective, and that reflective process is useful in your personal statement when applying to university. It's useful in degree essays, it's useful in debates. So always having to be reflective and ask the opinion of yourself and where you see it going in the future, and looking and sort of delving really deeply into what authors or writers or even, you know, people who've got a general opinion on things have said, and making sure that you understand, agree or disagree, and you're willing to fight those points and really sort of pull them apart is going to be a really key skill to move on to in the future. With your project process, you will work through choosing your area of interest. You'll meet your supervisor, so that's very similar to an academic advisor at a university course. You'll draft your title, you'll make sure everybody's happy with it. You'll use the planning process before creating your presentations at the end of your project and reviewing all the work that you've done before you provide all the evidence together along with your essay or your article and your artifact to push through and understand the whole of the EPQ process. And by going through these steps, that head start is there for university. And each time the grading system will always help you. So it's worth looking at mark schemes both for degree programmes, but also for A-level programmes or the EPQ to see what the weighting is and what you'll be assessed on to make sure you're hitting the targets that you want to achieve as you're going through. Students should focus on the reflective log throughout the process. The reason that we talk about the reflective log is it shows the process that you've gone through to the EPQ and shows all your evidence. So whether you're going on to a science course or a politics course, you're likely to have to show the evidence behind your thinking. And by utilising the log in your EPQ, you've already got one structure of how that learning can help you at university. It could be that your EPQ could also offer you a scholarship. So we offer a scholarship at UEA where if you get a A or an A star in your EPQ or a research project and the equivalent of 3 Bs at university. And lastly, it can have a link to UEA, or we ask you to write 300 words about your EPQ. That could get you £1,000 each year towards your university studies in a scholarship way. So that's non-repayable money that could help you towards university as well. We offer lots of different learning when it comes to the EPQ, and one way you can prepare for university and your EPQ is looking at the study skills on our pre-university MOOC. But if you're looking at Future Learn MOOC in general, there are lots of different topics to help you with your essay writing as well. So lots of resources available to help you with your EPQ, and you'll start to learn the techniques that are there as you're building through. When you're thinking about your title, you can relate it to the course to help you with the knowledge towards your course, but any study skills are going to help you get through to university. When you're reading text, always look for key points. It's a good technique for university that a lot of our academic advisors really respect. Organising your referencing and learning referencing early will help you with those reference builds for university applications, but also for university essays. And always be asking universities about what they think of the EPQ and how it can help your application, because it could help you with a scholarship or a grade difference. If you want to find out a bit more about the EPQ, and we have a really cool resource on the EPQ in our study skills booklet, then just head over to this email address and we can send you a bit more information. I hope that helps, guys. Good luck with your EPQs if you are taking them now.